Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Carolinas Government Contracting Assistance Program for doing business with the Navy. I am Byron Hicks, the State Director of the North Carolina Small Business and Technology Development Center, and we're really excited to help host this today with the South Carolina Small Business Development Center. One thing that we know through our SBTDC and SBDCs, we provide thousands of small business owners with tens of thousands of hours of business advisory services. And what we hear from them is small businesses want to grow sales. They always need to grow sales. And to do that, they need more customers. Many of you might not know this, but our federal government is the largest purchaser of consumer goods. If you make it, believe me, they buy it. And so today we're going to spend some time on helping you learn how to do business with the Navy as a customer for government contracting. So what I'd like to do now is introduce one of several of our speakers today. I think you'll really get a lot out of these experts that have shared their time this afternoon. So I'm going to introduce Christopher Espenshade. He currently serves as the Director of the Office of Small Business Programs at the Navy Supply Systems Command, headquartered in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. Their mission is to provide supplies, services, quality of life support to the Navy and joint warfighter. They manage supply chains that provide material for Navy aircraft, surface ships, submarines, and their associated weapon systems. Prior to leading the NAVSUP's Office of Small Business Programs, Chris spent 12 years as a contracting specialist, officer, and procurement analyst with the NAVSUP enterprise, supporting a number of NAVSUP procurement initiatives and reform efforts. Chris is a graduate of the John L. Grove College of Business at Shepherdsburg University of Pennsylvania. He holds a level 3 certification in contracting and has been a member of the Defense Acquisition Corps since 2015. So right now, I'd like to welcome Chris to the program.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hicks. Hopefully I'm coming through clear for everybody. Again, good afternoon. On behalf of the Department of Navy Office of Small Business Programs, I want to first off say thank you for joining us for today's workshop, and a special thank you to South Carolina Small Business Development Center's team for partnering with Department of Navy Small Business to help host the Columbia Navy Week for 2021 Small Business event. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of an agenda for today's discussion. I'll quickly and briefly go over the guiding documents of Department of Navy small business and small business offices in general across Department of Defense. And then I'll do an overview of Department of Navy small business, what all initiatives that they're involved with, what the focus areas are for the department. And then probably what you're most interested in is preparing yourself to become procurement ready and be able to support both federal across Department of Navy, but also DoD becoming what we call procurement ready. And then we'll give you a little bit more insight into the regional small business performance and spend within the Columbia area. And then finally, we'll go over some resources and assistance to help you improve your readiness to jump into Department of Defense work. So next slide, please. So Department of Navy Office of Small Business, our small business strategy is strategically aligned with the National Defense Strategy, as well as Department of Navy strategy, which, 3 lines of efforts within the NDS is lethality, strengthening alliances, and improving performance and affordability, which of course is tantamount to what Department of Navy small business believes that small business can provide to Department of Defense. And we do that through 3 focus areas: people, capabilities, and processes. So improving along those 3 focus areas, we believe will lead to increased lethality, strengthening alliances across our stakeholder groups, as well as providing the performance and affordability that only small business can provide. Next slide, please. So again, here's a quick overview of lines of efforts into aligning with the National Defense Strategy. And really, supporting the warfighters is what the Department of Defense and Navy is all about. That includes major defense acquisition programs, both large and small businesses, and the industrial base being robust and resilient, as well as streamlining acquisitions, reducing risk, and then what small business really leads at, which is fostering innovation. So again, there's a critical role that the industrial base provides to national security of the United States. In recent years, globalization of supply chains, increases in mergers and acquisitions, consolidation of the marketplace has created an issue in terms of competition, in terms of innovation, and in terms of resiliency within our supply chain. Obviously, everybody's seeing the effects that are going on right now as it relates to COVID supply chain issues and a crisis. So again, this creates vulnerabilities, and what we are committed to is, improving the Navy's position in fostering a small business atmosphere that capitalizes on the innovation that the small businesses, are providing to the nation, as well as providing the affordability, lower overhead. It's as simple as lower overhead rates, but also providing, getting directly to the expertise that we need to supply and support that end mission. So, again, factors that really are affecting the industrial base within the last couple of years is sequestration. The uncertainty of government spending causes loss of demand signal, which ultimately is going to affect the industrial base viability. Consolidation naturally occurs. Um, you know, Something that am really passionate about is U.S. manufacturing capability. Specifically, at Naval Supply Systems Command, we support the sustainment of weapon systems programs, which are hinged. There's a lot of importance on us having machining capability, folks that are able to do MRO, maintenance, repair, operations. Um, so decline of U.S. manufacturing capability and capacity, government business and procurement, and the overall capacity of the number of vendors that are out there competing creates additional cost, unaffordability of supporting these services and supplies. Industrial policies and competitor nations. So obviously, there's a lot of competition around the world for supply chain, with some of that capability going overseas. So again, trying to identify those areas for which we believe are important to sustaining Department of Defense and Navy is most. And then lastly, diminishing U.S. STEM and trade skills. So there's been a tremendous amount of effort across Department of Navy. You see it at our local tech bridges, Naval X, those sorts of initiatives, in trying to get the younger population that's coming into the workforce involved in the trade skills that are vitally important to sustain a naval fleet. Next slide, please. So a little bit, some of the metrics that we take a look at in adjusting how we outreach with industry. So NDIA, National Defense Industry Association, they did a health and readiness assessment in 2021 of the industrial base. So it's maintained a defense industrial base grade of a C, which C, I guess, is passing, but this is in college. We're shooting for A's. So to understand, some of the focus, they looked at 8 conditions to assess the vital signals of defense industrial base. So demand, production inputs, innovation, supply chain, competition, industrial security, political and regulatory issues, as well as productivity, capacity, and surge readiness. Now, I would imagine when we take a look at the later part of 2021, we're going to see some cracks within supply chain capacity as well, which will then, of course, affect competition and demand. So I would imagine we're looking at an uphill battle for next year's survey results. So some key areas within the survey, again, impacted from COVID. 70% of 1,100 respondents experienced moderate or a large impact, while 12% thought that they would not return to 2019 levels in terms of these 8 areas of input. So some of the feedback is from industry, you got to reform the acquisition process and budget stability. Again, this is something that's not new. I think industry has been saying this for probably better part of 15 years as far as, hey, if you want new blood into the system, get folks involved within federal acquisition in general. The acquisition process has to be streamlined, and you have to have a steady demand signal. Sequestration, obviously, was the biggest impact. So again, the uncertainty about the future was deterrent for, hey, whether or not industry got involved within Department of Defense. Next slide. So again, next part of the brief, we'll just go over briefly Department of Navy Office of Small Business, provide an overview of that, and then we'll move right on to becoming procurement ready. So, something that we are constantly part of the job within Department of Navy small business, and really any small business office across DoD, is again advocating for what can small business do to meet mission on time, and not just meet mission, but really exceed expectations. It's no secret that small business delivers the performance through agility and affordability. Uh, Innovation always comes from small business, and then is later procured or consolidated under a large business. But what we're most focused on is getting to the innovation first before that happens, and rewarding small business that have become startups that are non-traditional, that are out there, that are driving the market on the commercial side, and developing that under Department of Defense. So again, advocating that small business is the way to go to get ahead of the curve, and that we need to continue to have outreach to reach the non-traditional suppliers. Next slide. So a little bit of history of Department of Navy Office of Small Business. So again, this is all derived from the Small Business Act. You know, the original purpose of the program was really designed to help contractors do business with the federal government. So the federal government loaned money to all businesses following the Great Depression, of course, in the 20s. But by 1999, around abouts, it changed the program that required federal contracting officers to reserve small business on solicitations that are expected to exceed a certain threshold. So, for example, all requirements that are above what we call micro purchase, which is 10,000 across federal government, from 10,000 up to 250,000, are automatically reserved for small business. And in fact, if a contract officer is not to be setting aside to small business, they have to provide the small business specialist that works in their local small business office with what we call a D2579, which is a small business coordination review that basically states, hey, here's the market research that I've done. I was not able to locate small business, or I've reached out to small business and they've expressed no interest in performing under this requirement, and this is why this will not be set aside to small business. So a lot of folks don't really understand kind of the day in and day out advocacy, and really there is a lot of effort for Department of Defense to go to small business as much as we possibly can. Of course, the size of the procurement really dictates how much time you spend on market research. But there is always an advocate for every single action above micro purchase by a small business professional that says, hey, understood you couldn't find small business, however, maybe try this. And then we constantly go back and try to find small business to support. So on a daily basis, that's what happens. But again, just some quick history. Really started 1947 about the Armed Services Procurement Act, which basically said, hey, we need to establish a fair portion of total federal purchases and contracts to be placed with small business. That evolved within the Defense Production Act within the 50s. And then again, what you see now is this requirement for all agencies that have procurement authority to establish a small business office that is their sole job is to be advocates for small business and to ensure that federal acquisition regulation is being upheld in terms of both at the prime level for small business, but also at the subcontractor level. So far, 19.7 for those that follow federal acquisition regulation. Next slide, please. So again, a little bit of an overview of Department of Navy's small business strategy. The vision here, again, is to influence change and enhance a culture of small business inclusiveness across Department of Navy. We do that by fostering acquisition opportunities where we think small business can best support both the sailors and Marines. So really, that's through advocacy, counseling, and training. We're constantly, usually on a quarterly basis, we're doing at the local level training for our acquisition workforce on market research, the various regulations that are being passed, NDAA changes, subcontracting policy questions, and adherence to federal acquisition regulation. Next slide. So again, briefly, I'll go over the major buying commands that make up the Department of Navy Office of Small Business. First is U.S. Marine Corps Installation and Logistics. Again, their primary mission is for the Marine Corps ground equipment, Marine Corps specific installations, both architectural and engineering type of requirements. And then you have MARCOR Systems Command, which covers ground weapons and IT systems. So specifically for Marine Corps, mission partners, they are covering any sort of supplies and services related to the force. Naval Facilities Engineering Command, they are the buying command on behalf of SENIC, if you've heard of SENIC. So think of any Navy base that is specifically Navy. They handle, again, the construction and facilities, architectural engineering, modernization of Navy-owned buildings and facilities. They are doing it. So really think of them as Navy construction worldwide. You have Strategic Systems Programs, SSP. So this is Navy's Missile Systems and Defense organization. You have Naval Supply Systems Command. Again, the majority of Navy actions are executed from NAVSUP. And actually, we do over 40% of the individual actions across the spectrum of the Navy and supply. So this is both services, material, any logistics, quality of life type things, such as, we have food services, we have mail, we have hazmat. Hazmat's procured by DLA. We maintain the logistics of it, but Navy sustainment. So maritime and aviation spares that come out of Navy supply. Next slide. So Military Sealift Command, MSC. This is, again, ocean transportation. Think of them as providing, transportation specifically to support the Navy. Naval Air Systems Command, of course, they are the program offices for our aviation platforms. Naval Information Warfare Systems used to be called SPAWAR, now NAVWAR. They are Navy Information and Technology and Communication Requirements. Office of Naval Research, you're probably familiar with them through the SBIR program, where, of course, they're really at the leading edge of looking at what industry has in terms of evolving technology, technology that's not yet being commercialized, those sorts of things on Navy platforms, whether it's surface, subsurface, or aviation. That's what ONR is really tasked to do. And then last but not least, of course, Naval Sea Systems Command, NAVSEA. Primary mission is shipbuilding, and then fleet modernization, those sorts of things. So they are the lead program office for maritime applications. Next slide. Again, we'll move on to becoming procurement ready. So first and foremost, if you are not familiar with Department of Navy, or really, and this goes for any federal space, DoD, the first thing you have to do is identify what resources are out there. Do your homework up front. I know a lot of folks, it's very easy once you get an email address or you have a point of contact, whether it's LinkedIn or anything like that, is to reach out and say, "Hey, I do this," and it doesn't really fit that Navy command. Again, remember, you have to be strategic. You only get so many opportunities to engage with somebody with an acquisition. Small business professionals, usually it's a very it really mimics a small business. It's 1 to 2 people that cover office responsibilities of a lot. So we just ask that you do your homework up front. Look at the long range acquisition forecast for all the Navy commands, and you can find this information on doing business with under the doing business with tab on the Department of Navy small business website. Um, they have an abundance of information for you specific to Navy. So long range acquisition forecast. So this is a yearly forecast that all Navy commands, major buying commands, put out that establish, hey, we anticipate these requirements within this quarter, within this fiscal year, to help industry kind of prepare themselves for when they come and hit the street, um, as well as past procurement information. So if you go on sam.gov, you can get all federal procurement data. It's about 90 days delayed because they have to scrub it, but if you go to Department of Navy, you can find Navy specific award data that shows, hey, I can filter it down and find exactly which Navy command buys what I sell, or who's buying what service that my company's involved with. So that's a wealth of information to help you strategize who you reach out to. Um, Again, there's a number. Department of Navy Office of Small Business has done. To me, I think they're leading in Department of Defense in command outreach days. The days like this, industry days, industry events. Um, there's a really good opportunity anymore to join those virtually without having to travel. So I think that's a really good direction for getting folks involved. Next slide. Okay, yeah. So government point of entry and data reporting sites. So, of course, sam.gov is where all federal procurement requirements are going to be uploaded for you to see that are out for solicitation. Contract data reports. So again, finding that procurement data. It used to be FPDS. Now it's all hosted on sam.gov. Specifically for Navy electronics, electronic commerce online. So NECO is for all the actions, really from 10,000 to 25,000 that are required to be on a Navy point of entry. So NECO, you'll find the 10 to 25,000, and then anything above that would really be found on sam.gov for open opportunities. Next slide, please. Some resources. SBA, great resource. They offer teams. They team with local partners for counseling, mentoring, training small business entrepreneurs and innovative suppliers through free business counseling. Of course, most people are probably familiar with the SBA guaranteed business loans, as well as home and business disaster loans. And then they support, hey, how do I engage with federal government contracting? So there's a number of resources, both the district and regional office. There's a SCORE program that's membership by service corps and retired executives that support small businesses that are trying to get involved. The small business development centers, of course. There's women business centers, as well as veteran business outreach centers that I think a lot of folks aren't real familiar with, but that's a great resource as well if you're a veteran and have decided to venture out into the small business world. Next slide. So again, we talked about SAM.gov. So this is, the old FBO, Federal Business Opportunities. It's now hosted under SAM.gov. You got to be registered within SAM. You have to have a cage code in order for you to compete on procurements across federal marketplace. So step number one is getting registered within SAM.gov, getting a cage code, filling out your reps and certs to attest that you are a small business. If you're a supply type of company, your small business size status will be based off of the number of employees. If you offer services, it'll be based off of your 5-year average of revenue. For the folks that aren't familiar with that. Next slide. So, specifically to South Carolina Small Business Development Centers. Again, for 40 years, entrepreneurs have been reaching out to the SBDCs to help expand and really just to start their businesses. So I know they're a great resource as far as both free consulting. Again, the seminars that you're attending today. And this is, I think, what I would highlight here is this is for all stages of development. So this is really from start of a business through maturity, that you may need to seek additional counseling to say, hey, I'm in a new position of what I want to grow my business as that I haven't ever dealt with before. I'm an existing company, but I need some support and counseling. So that's a great resource. Again, of course, the link is at the bottom there. Next 2 slides. So a quick overview of regional spend. Well, first and foremost, this is across Navy in total. This is FY22 data. So Navy executed a total of $105 billion, of which 17 billion went to small business, so 16.4%. So it's a very big marketplace for small business. It's a big marketplace in general when you're looking at $105 billion. But in terms of small business portfolio, the group, you'll see across all Navy commands, and it's likely across the DoD, is the knowledge-based services always lead that category of small business spend, which was about $3.8 billion was knowledge-based services, followed by facility-related services. So again, that's at architectural engineering that both Marine Corps, INL, and NAVFAC support. And then research development followed by equipment related services. But the good news here is Department of Navy has met all 5 small business goals. Folks that aren't familiar with small business goals, there's 5 main goals. Overall goal is small business, and then there's socioeconomic goals. So the SBA assigns each service a goal for small disadvantaged business, service disabled veteran-owned small business, women-owned small business, and then hub zone. So we are able to exceed all 5. So Navy historically does a really good job with our socioeconomic programs, and we'll continue to try to increase those goals for the coming year. Next slide, please. There might be a little bit of delay on my side here. Okay, just showed up. So again, this is just a quick breakdown of historical spend. As you can see, small disadvantage, top left graph, small disadvantage is making a steady increase here from 5.9 to 6.3 billion last fiscal year. And across really all socioeconomic groups, you're seeing a trending incline. We saw hub zone spend increase a good bit, which is always a difficult thing across the federal marketplace because of regulations that require a certain percentage of the business to remain within that hub zone as a permanent residence. So again, the thought here is to bring in additional spend and to improve the zone that these companies are operating in. In terms of the top 5 contractors, no surprise, these are traditional primes: General Dynamics, Lockheed, Huntington Ingalls, Boeing, and Northrop, which are, typically the OEMs for a lot of ACAT 1 programs, as well as shipbuilding. So a lot of spend, of course, goes there. Now, the positive of that is they need support. They're not, majority of their work is not done in-house, and they rely on subcontractor and a robust industrial base for the end product to be delivered. So what I would take away from this is, we of course want folks involved in prime contracted work, but if you're new, I would really recommend getting your feet wet first in subcontracted spend. There's a lot of opportunity out there. There's a lot of connections that can be made. Most of these top 5 contractors have their own small business office that you can reach out with and get connected with to say, hey, I'm here, this work for you. So that's another option I always recommend, is try to make connections with their small business offices. Next slide is, again, it's just a nice pie chart, kind of breaking it down to the various commodities that make up the $107 billion. It's no surprise, really. Aircraft, ships and submarines, the building of such is $41 billion. So that makes a bulk of the Navy's spend. But a lot of these other commodities, PSCs, have a lot of opportunity in them as well. Next slide. So locally, in terms of small business performance within Department of Navy, so about 9.5 million, actually a little bit over, went to Columbia, South Carolina. Small business execution is fairly high within the local area. So 6.6 of that 9.5, 69% of the Department of Navy spend went to small business. So this is a really good opportunity, a really good area for small business performance. Next slide. Next slide, please. Nope, hopefully we're not frozen. Can you still hear me?
We can. Do you see the fiscal year 21 Columbia, South Carolina headquartered?
No, it's not showing on my side, but that's okay. So again, across South Carolina, you're looking at $2 billion worth of Department of Navy spend, of which close to 19% of that's small business. The following slides, again, you'll have a copy of these, but this will kind of break down the various NAICS codes. Okay, now it's starting to catch up on my side, sorry. So slide, I believe it's 25, gets into a breakdown. And again, this is all information. This is a great opportunity. This is the type of information you can pull down from Department of Navy Small Business Office website. That'll give you all this breakdown, place of performance, NAICS code, the description of the requirement, who's buying what. Similar on the next slide, if we can go forward. Again, I think most folks will probably rather see this on their own time. Keep going. Yeah, so again, you'll get a that data will provide you with not only the service description, but it also provide you the prime vendor of the previous requirement. So if you want a team, if you're looking to support as a subcontractor, that's a great opportunity to identify who you want to partner with that's currently involved in the space, to again get your feet wet within Department of Navy or DoD contracts and identify who you need to reach out to. Next slide, please. So I've talked about it a good bit. So Department of Navy Office of Small Business website. Here's a quick screen grab. So there's various tabs on there. Again, you can look at You'll learn more about Department of Navy. You can look at the various commands, learn about each individual commands, see what outreach that we're involved in. The performance tab, again, is going to give you Navy specific spend. Doing business tab within that website is going to provide you some additional information for becoming procurement ready, as we've talked about, as well as reaching out to various stakeholders. Next slide. So again, I talked about Office of Naval Research. I think one of the best opportunities for getting involved within not only Department of Navy, but DoD is through the Small Business Innovative Research and STTR programs, because one, typically it's a broad agency announcement that goes out from a Navy customer that says, hey, I have this problem. I'm looking to you, industry, to understand how you think this can be best solved. Phase one is hey, we give you a short investment to build out and to show proof of concept. Phase two is really taking that concept, putting into an operational setting to see if it works. And then phase three is really the sustainment of the support. So that's a contract that has no end in period performance. It's sole source to the small business that provided the solution that will allow any mission partner to continue to go back and utilize that service or supply for future requirements. So in terms of getting involved with a command or an agency, I think that's a great opportunity if you're really a company that specializes in providing solutions to a customer. Take a look at that. There's a lot of information out there, of course, navysbir.com, and then identifying what broad agency announcements are available. That's all available on the website. So really, the purpose of that mission is to incubate, accelerate, and then bridge the gap to provide what technology is out there that can provide our warfighters with an advantage on the battlefield. Next slide. So Mentor Protege program, great program in terms of getting a traditional to team up with a small business. And so part of the requirement is you have to have an existing relationship with the small business. So they have to be a subcontractor, or they have to support the prime, or sorry, the mentor in some manner. But the purpose behind this is to bring a subcontractor and a small business up to the level that they can provide services at a prime level. So that's really designed to improve the industrial base, increase the competition within markets, and then really increase utilization of the non-traditional and commercial companies. I'm a big proponent of Mentor Protege. NAVSUP currently has one, and we're working on 2 additional agreements for the coming years on the manufacturing side. But what I've seen it do to a small business is, I think it is, if you were to talk to the small business who is the protege in this case, I mean, they're blown away at what a resource it is for a small business that's excited to grow, that's looking to develop themselves. So if you're interested in a mentor protege program, reach out to a prime contractor, begin that relationship. Again, it's all based off of what I can do to position you in a better position for future requirements across Navy and Department of Defense. And this is what I want to do to grow. It takes a lot of commitment, but the payoff is outstanding for small business. So take a look at that and engage with some traditionals if you have interest in doing that. Next slide. Again, so Naval X Innovation Centers, this is somewhat relatively new, I think within the past 3 fiscal years. Naval X has really expanded these. So here's all the locations for the tech bridges for you to go in and engage with Navy. It's supposed to be kind of the theory behind it is, hey, this is outside the base type of meeting places where industry that has unique capability can come in, kind of showcase these. So specifically Charleston is probably your closest one. But if you're somewhere closer to Florida, you also have Orlando in Central Florida, and across the U.S. These are a great opportunity to engage. Next slide, please. Okay, so CRADA, most folks probably haven't had too much involvement with the Cooperative Research and Development Agreement authorities that's out there. This is this program is great because it allows additional research and development collaboration between Navy, academia, and small business. Provides an avenue again to offer intellectual property rights and federal resources that aren't traditionally available. So really, this is partnering through an institution. Next slide. Really great resource that most folks aren't aware of, in addition to SBA and the Small Business Development Centers and any PTACs that are out there, is DAU, so Defense Acquisition University. This is internal Department of Defense university that does the training for example, acquisition, contracting competency training, as well as logistics, program management. They have offered industry with a number of classes and training to help you prepare yourself to be involved with Department of Defense procurements. So I think this is an awesome opportunity for industry to learn about what it takes to be, involved with federal procurements, and it's free. So really take advantage of that. It's as simple as going to dau.edu to sign up for those classes and take them at your leisure. Next slide, please. So DCAA, Defense Contracting Audit Agency, the main benefit here is there's a number of avenues here to provide you resources to become audit compliant. Typically, where small business struggles with is the compliance with DCAA, cost accounting standards, those sorts of things, when it comes into a little bit of the higher dollar value requirements that are out there. So again, they provide you an overview of accounting system requirements, briefs on contracting, cost submissions, the proposal adequacy when you're proposing that requires certified cost and pricing, those sorts of things. And then it'll go through billing rates, labor cost evaluations. So from an accounting standpoint, this is a really good resource. Next slide. So Defense Counterintelligence and Security Agency, they provide orientation over security clearance level if there's a security clearance required for a requirement. Provides you, kind of runs you down through a checklist of making sure that you're ready to have a security clearance and you have everything involved. There's toolkits there and training videos to prepare you. Next slide. Again, there's a lot of resources out there. So from a procurement side, in addition to DAU courses, there's a number of toolkits. So DoD Procurement Toolkit, kind of captures a lot of this training as well. So this is another avenue and resource. The next slide is talking about cybersecurity. So cybersecurity is kind of an ever-evolving thing. Most folks have probably heard of CMMC, Cyber Maturity Model. That is constantly being reviewed and established for what is acceptable. So this will bring into CMMC type of requirements, as well as Project Spectrum is a really good opportunity. And then so next slide is kind of back to Department of Navy. I think it's important that you're constantly involved with outreach, and there's typically a weekly email that goes out from Department of Navy to provide updates about outreach, industry events, networking opportunities. I highly suggest you go on there, sign up for the mailer. That at least, as you're going about your business, every once in a while you'll be reminded that, hey, there's an outreach event or there's a networking opportunity. This is a really great resource. And then the following slide here is just an overview of the web series that's coming up. Usually it's either a monthly or a quarterly web series that engages. So, we have some upcoming web series that if you subscribe to the OSB PAO mailbox, you hear about them. Some of the past web series that we had, again, was talking about Naval X, Project Spectrum, overviews from each of the commands. Specifically, they'll talk about their commands, roundtables, and then they'll talk about the PTAX, and the hub zone type of requirements that come out. Some of the next slide is just an overview of some of the major events that Department of Navy is personally in attendance at. So we just had SERE in Space. It was a little bit delayed because of COVID. Next year it'll be April 4th through the 6th of 2022. If you're in the area or if you can travel there, I think it's an awesome event. Not only to meet various Navy small business professionals, but to meet and network with some of the traditional primes that are there. It's just a really good opportunity to engage with acquisition folks, with a number of topics. Department of Navy does a really good job of trying to make sure that some of the discussions and briefs that are there are going to be beneficial to small business. So really, again, I can't mention enough how important on the East Coast SERE in Space is. And then the next slide will go over Navy Gold Coast. We're not sure what the schedule will be. Typically, that's summer time period, around July, September time period for the West Coast folks. Last, I think, 3 years now have been virtual. I anticipate next year will be in person. From what I've heard, it'll be in person. So if you happen to be on the West Coast, this is the premier West Coast event for Navy customers to attend, as well as Navy commands that are there that have any requirements that you may be interested in. The slide is talking about, hey, how can I be connected to Department of Navy? Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube is really great. I know Department of Navy is looking to add additional YouTube videos so that, hey, at your leisure, you can go and review a video versus trying to find some of the information on various websites. So if you subscribe to that channel, there's a lot of good information. And then the next slide is really open it up to anybody who may have questions. And I apologize for not mentioning that earlier, but if you have any questions, please feel free to drop it in the chat box. I know there's a couple here. If I can get to them here. Sarah, I don't know if you can see the chat. Okay, I can't see it now. I know there's a question. Will we receive a copy of these slides?
Yes, so this meeting is being recorded and all of the presentations along with the recording will be sent to all attendees.
Okay. Yeah, and if I'll hang on here for a couple of minutes. If anybody has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Okay, so question was, in your experience, what's the best way to use your office to be referred to others in the Navy that might be interested in a vendor services? So I guess I would start by saying the first point I made was, before you engage with anybody, make sure you do the homework and say, for example, if you're reaching out to me, what I would ask is, does my requirement support a Naval Supply Systems Command type of procurement, or is it a part of their mission? If not, who would probably be best? Is it NAVC, NAVAIR? um, those sorts of things. But to be referred to others in the Navy, I think a lot of folks for um, recurring interest from Navy is performance. So again, getting in as a subcontractor, I think is the best option, as well as the SBIR program, to prove, hey, I'm really good. Of course, we open up all requirements up to vendors to provide a proposal on that says, hey, we're best value to the Navy. So of course, being competitive in that manner is important. But the small business office is here to help you connect with folks as the best that we can. Question was, where do you foresee the Navy procurement heading in the coming years? Up, down, flat, etc. I don't have a crystal ball. However, I would imagine that Department of Defense's mission will continue to be for projection, and the Navy is the lead for that. So I don't anticipate Navy budget taking a big increase. Again, as administrations come and go, it's really up to them. I would imagine, if there's a potential for cuts, but I just don't see it across Navy. I haven't heard anything. That's the best answer I can probably give you. There's a question in regards to suggestions on the best way to go after Navy contracts under 25,000, not advertising SAM. So again, make sure you are on NICO. You can set up notification filters just like SAM.gov. There's a question. What do you find is the biggest mistake or shortcoming of businesses new to selling to the government? So it all goes back to, you only get so much opportunity to engage with a customer. I think your messaging has to be well researched. You have to come off as, hey, I know who I'm engaging with and I know what I do. The biggest thing where I see small business is over exaggerating your capabilities, biting off more than you can chew. And while there's a lot of opportunity out there, kind of the saying goes, don't drown an opportunity. Um, Past performance will either make or break you within Department of Defense and really across federal agencies. So you have to make sure that you are taking care of the customer and doing your best to maintain a good perception by both the customer but also the contracting officer. So constant and frequent communication with the KO, and ensuring that the customer agrees that, hey, performance is up to par, if not exceeding expectations. So again, I've seen, unfortunately, a few times where small business has got a really good bid and capture person, and then ultimately they couldn't deliver, and it just dissolved the small business because they were just drowning in the number of contracts that they were successful in getting awarded to. There's a question, is it possible to develop a product through the Navy for a device used with the school system? I don't know exactly. I think the question maybe is, there's a device that's used in the school system that maybe has applicability to the Navy. If that is the question, I would recommend reaching out to Office of Naval Research. Or I would see right now, does the SBIR office have a broad agency announcement that's out there that would somehow relate to this device that could be tailored for a military application? That would be the other opportunity. Question, I have a CNC manufacturing business and I have done subcontracting work. What resource would be best for me to pursue to obtain my own contract or the mentor project? So to answer that question, again, I'm a big proponent of manufacturing, industrial base, maintaining domestic manufacturing, and folks that can support kind of what we call low volume, high mix. So that's hey, we can adapt very quickly to a number of kind of 1 or 2 off type of requirements that the Navy needs. That's where we run into obsolescence issues. So first and foremost, reach out to the prime that you support for subcontracting work, pitch it to them as to why you would like to be a part of a mentor protege agreement, and you can also reach out to whatever command you support right now, whether it's NAVC, NAVAIR, or maybe it's on the sustainment side at NAVSUP, just to say, hey, I'm here. I'd like to do mentor protege agreement. I've reached out to this prime. They're potentially interested, those sorts of things. There's a question about how much construction does the Navy contract out per year? I would have to go back and review. Let me see here. So Naval Facilities Command is usually about third within Department of Navy spend. We are usually right after them. I can find the slide. So about 4.6 billion small business awards were executed by NAVFAC within FY20. So hopefully that answers that question. Wait a second here, see if there's any other questions. Okay, well, again, if there are any questions, feel free to shoot Department of Navy Small Business an email just asking your question, and they'll probably submit it over to the small business director that's probably best suited to answer that. But with that being said, again, I want to thank South Carolina Small Business Development Center for hosting this opportunity for Department of Navy to speak and allowing me to speak on behalf of Department of Navy. With that being said, I'll turn the presentation over to Ms. Michelle Abraham, South Carolina SBDC State Director. Thank you again.
Chris, thank you so much. That was a terrific presentation, and I think really helpful for all of us to be able to better understand the market that you have through the Navy's Office of Small Business Programs and the opportunities that could be available to all of our viewers today. So great job, and we really appreciate it. I wanted to just spend a few minutes before we go into the break and talk a little bit more about the services that we provide so that you're aware of where you can get additional support and help. Through the Government Contract Assistance Program, which we call the GCAP, of course, another acronym. It's offered by both the North Carolina and South Carolina Small Business Development Centers. And we assist clients that want to broaden their market into selling to the government. Both states have offered this kind of government contracting assistance for over 30 years. And we provide other general small business support. We've been doing that for over 40 years. So you have two teams that collaborate and support basically any business need that you would have that would help you in expanding into or expanding what you already have in the way of government contracting. This can be a very confusing and complex market to try to get into. And we know that. And obviously you could see from Chris's comments that he understands that too. So we're here to help you navigate that, to look at this not only on a federal level, but also there may be opportunities at state and local levels through government that are, if you haven't been in government contracting before, sometimes a great way to kind of get your feet wet and start to learn how to do this. In addition to offering all of these specific services aimed at selling to the government, we provide a host of other business consulting and training services. And those range from topics like, not only selling to the government, but financial management. You heard Chris talk about cost accounting and making sure that you have the right accounting and bookkeeping systems in place. Those are critical for being able to successfully sell to the government. So we can help you put those kinds of things in place. We can help you with obtaining financing, which a lot of times people need if they're expanding into a new area. We help you with developing marketing plans, putting together those capability statements, in looking at how to broaden your marketing efforts to reach some of the government agencies as well as the general marketplace, and all kinds of additional things. So just know that we're here for all of those kinds of support services. To give you a sense, in 2020, just here in South Carolina, we provided training to over 10,000 individuals, and we conducted private consulting sessions for over 12,000 people. So we reach a lot of people, and that's just here in South Carolina. That doesn't include the numbers of what they did in North Carolina. But the majority of clients we serve are established businesses that are looking to increase their sales and grow into new markets. One thing that's really good to note is that our consulting services are generally free of charge. We don't charge you a fee. That's part of what we're here to do for you. And we have 20 offices here in South Carolina and about 50 seasoned professionals that can help you in all these aspects. So when you come in, just know that you have access to our full array of resources. We're going to have someone assigned who works primarily with you, but if there are other specialty services you need, we're going to bring those additional people into the group so that you get all the help that you need that's customized for what you specifically are needing for your business. I know all of us would like to think that we have hopefully gotten beyond the worst of the pandemic, but in truth, we don't know really what the market is going to bring next year. So we do considerable research through the small business development centers to make sure that we're up on trends, that we're understanding as best we can where the market is heading, and so that we have all the tools and knowledge at our plates so that we can help you understand and navigate through what, as I said, can be pretty challenging waters, especially getting into a new area like government contracting. Some of that research that we've done includes a survey that we just completed, and might be interesting for you to know the top 3 areas that businesses told us they felt they needed help from us on. The first one is developing sales and growth strategies. So that would include somebody that's trying to get into exporting or government contracting like this is today. As well as just figuring out, how do I expand my client base? How do I protect the clients that I have now and increase my sales? The second area, which certainly is related, is improvement or help with developing marketing strategies and building better marketing capabilities. So whether that is your capability statements or improving your website or figuring out how you better promote your business in a variety of different, both digital and non-digital avenues, those are things that we can help you with. And then the third area was addressing financial issues, cash flow, bookkeeping, getting access to capital, all of those kinds of things. We help with that day in and day out. So just know that we also, not only the North Carolina and South Carolina Small Business Development Centers work together throughout the Carolinas to help you with government contracting and these other services, but we also work with a variety of other partners. We appreciate the Navy being here today to provide this information to you. We work very closely with the Small Business Administration, who you're going to be hearing from, with other partners out there like the PTAX, and here in South Carolina, we're working closely with the Manufacturing Extension Partnership and the Department of Commerce on a grant program to help people that are trying to get qualified under the new requirements for cybersecurity if you're government contracting. So just know we're here to help. We're here to help at any stage of your business for as long as you need us. And we're just excited to be able to support your growth and your success. So with that, we're going to take a short break. Scott, if you would just confirm, do we want to take maybe about 15 minutes since we're running a little bit ahead of schedule and come back at about 20 after 2?
That sounds good to me. 20 after 2.
Great. Yes. So everyone feel free to take a break. You can obviously leave this on and just come back, and we'll start up again at 20 after 2. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me okay. This is Michael Korp. I'm the Deputy District Director from the Columbia SBA office. Just a little bit about our office real quick. We have 8 people in the main office in Columbia, and we also have 2 alternate work sites, one in Spartanburg, South Carolina, which is fairly new, and one in Charleston, South Carolina. And I know you've heard from our resource partner, so I won't rehash that. My background, I was in contracting for about 8 or 9 years before coming to the SBA. And today we're just going to do probably a really quick overview of the contracting programs. I'm only going to take about 15 minutes, but I will tell you, and I'll mention this again, you will get copies of all the slides that I'll show you. And I also have an email I usually send out, so I'll make sure I get a listing and send you that too. You know, an email with some other information, because there's a lot of websites and such. Some will be on the slides. Everything else you'll get to. And of course, if you go to our website at sba.gov, if you don't remember anything else, remember that, because anything you could possibly know about federal contracting is what we're talking about. I think we have other people talking about some state and local, but we deal with federal contracting. If you're interested in SBA loans for your business, we do classes on that too, and we've got people to talk to. And also, I'm sure some of you may still be looking at EIDL loans, economic injury disaster loans. If you clicked on our website, it'll take you right into the application, and you have till the end of December to do an application if you haven't started one. If you do have questions, the phone numbers, you know, on your EIDL applications or anything else, the phone numbers will be on the last slide, but our main phone number, you can call and somebody will always answer, hopefully answer your questions. So let's get started. There's a few things. If you went into a federal contracting agency and said you were interested in contracting, or even if you came to us and you're interested in one of the what we call preferential contracting programs, like woman-owned small business or HubZone or 8A, which we'll talk about later, the first question we're going to ask you is if you're registered in SAM. So to be eligible for a federal contract, the first step is to be registered in SAM, System for Award Management. Some of you may be registered already. It should only take you a couple hours to do this, including getting a DUNS number, Dun and Bradstreet number. And you'll have these websites here. We're not going to have time to go on all of them, but you can click on the websites too, and you could call the number, get a DUNS number that way, go on the website, and it takes about 5 minutes. To register in SAM, we're going to send you a handout, kind of a step-by-step process to register into SAM. Like I said, an hour or two. Be careful when you go to the website. I always foot stomp this. It's www.sam.gov. If you go and you put in SAM in Google or sam.com or something like that, and you find that somebody's asking you for a credit card number at some point, you're probably on a consulting firm site. It's not illegal, but you know, if you wanted somebody to do SAM for you, you could, and pay them $250 an hour, but hopefully you can do it yourself. Call our office if you get hung up anywhere, because it only, like I said, it only takes an hour or two. In that process here, I don't really like this last part of the slide because I try to avoid this area, this commercial and government entity code, CAGE code as they call it. When you register in SAM, it's going to ask you if you have a CAGE code. And if you didn't even know what it is, you should say no, and it'll automatically generate you a CAGE code. You don't have to do anything. If you start to get into the website and try to do it yourself, it'll just make things more complicated. And one thing I didn't mention too, we also have like a SAM registration tip sheet, nuggets as we call it. I don't know if Carl Faison was able to get on, but he made that. It's some tips where people sometimes get hung up in the SAM registration. And again, this is just a quick overview of what we do. We do like a two to 2.5 hour full contracting 101 class where we get into a little more detail. And sometimes we do a separate just SAM registration class too, but most of the time, quite honestly, we don't have too many people that can't get through the SAM registration. Are there, well, I'll wait till the end for questions because I know we don't have too much time. So we're going to talk about the set-asides, or what we call the preferential contracting programs. The federal government, and I know this isn't filled in yet, that's our pie, we call it, and everybody wants a piece of the pie. Everybody wants a federal contract, right? So the federal government spends about $500 billion on contracts each year, and we buy pretty much everything. We say everything, but there's some areas that are more prevalent than others, like construction, IT, landscaping, janitorial, building maintenance, facilities maintenance. So, there's different areas. And when you do register in SAM, you're going to have to load at least one NAICS code, North American Industry Classification Standard code. So you're basically going to be telling the contracting officer when you're registered in SAM and what you can do, what your capabilities are. So you do want to research those codes. It's a 6-digit code, and load at least one into SAM. You can always go back into SAM once you're registered and load additional codes. And a lot of times when you do market research and things like that, or look for opportunities out there on SAM, contracting opportunities, you may find that you have additional codes you want to load. So when we look at what's called a set aside, the contracting officer has goals to meet. And if you're one of those in one of those preferential contracting programs, there's goals that are broken down. They're first going to look, as a contracting officer, the goal is 23% of all contracting dollars go to a small business, and then we're going to break it down from here on this slide. But in a normal contracting office, like I worked at Shaw Air Force Base as a contracting officer, we probably awarded more like 75–80% of everything to a small business. And you really, in the contracting world, you have to explain why you're going to a small business, or a large business, I'm sorry, which, some of the bigger items, tanks, jets, nuclear power, things like that, really huge construction contracts, those are going to go to large businesses pretty much. But other than that, a typical contracting set aside is going to go to a small business. So when you break down the different areas, and we're going to talk about, well, I am going to talk about these. So you have the Women-Owned Small Business Program, and the goal is 5%. This program has kind of evolved over the past 5 or 6 years. It used to be we didn't have one, and I wasn't able to get on earlier, but if anybody talked about like the DOT, they considered, when we talk about the 8A program, minority-owned businesses, they consider women a minority. So we have our own program under the SBA for women-owned small businesses. And there's really two sides to that. There's just a woman-owned small business is by virtue of being 51% owned and controlled, you would be considered a woman-owned small business. The economically disadvantaged women-owned small business, if your personal net worth is below $750,000, that's when they ask economically disadvantaged. You're going to have to provide some additional economic information like your tax returns, business financials, and things like that to be considered economically disadvantaged. I will tell you that this program has a list of applicable NAICS codes. So as a woman-owned small business, there's a list of NAICS codes that are eligible. When this program first came out, they did a RAND study, and they said these particular NAICS codes or businesses or what your capabilities are underrepresented by women. It's the only program that has those lists like that. And there's one for economically disadvantaged women-owned small business. Most of the ones, probably 95% of them for economically disadvantaged, are for manufacturing type companies. So you typically, unless you're a manufacturer, you really want to seek just the women-owned small business first, and then decide whether the economic disadvantage fits the second half of that. And the goal of that, within that 23%, and you'll see this at the end, is 5% of all contract dollars go to women-owned small businesses. So if you look at that goal, and the contracting officer, when they have an opportunity out there, they have to, if they do a woman-owned small business set aside, unless you're a woman-owned small business, you can't compete for that contract. So that's where you narrow down the competition, which is really the goal of these programs. You have the small disadvantaged business, which is really the 8A program. Goals is 5%. So there's really three factors to that. Socially disadvantaged. So if you're Black, Hispanic, Native American, or Asian Pacific, you're automatically considered socially disadvantaged. If you're not in one of those groups, you would have to show through a preponderance of the evidence how you have been discriminated against over a long period of time. One of our 8A companies a couple of years ago, they've since graduated, but the owner was considered legally blind. We've had some owners, females that were, they could show discrimination over a long period of time in the corporate world. We even had fairly recently, a service disabled individual that was able to show through the preponderance, which is, that's a process of getting anything you can, statements, documents, and things like that. There's no hard and fast rule, but it's a course of action you could take if you don't fit one of the groups. There's oops, I'm sorry, I clicked ahead. We're going to talk about that next. I didn't cover my three areas. The second area is economically disadvantaged. So if your personal net worth is below 750,000, which actually just changed probably about a little over a year ago, it used to be only 250,000. So if your personal net worth is below 750,000, you could be considered economically disadvantaged. So that's a big change. And all your assets have to be below $6 million also. Now, the third part, and it's three, you have to have all three: socially disadvantaged, economically disadvantaged, in business for 2 years, for at least 2 years. Because when you get into the 8A program, it's a 9-year business development program. And you only have 9 years. So if you just started a business last week and you came right into the 8A program and you only have 9 years, you may not be ready. You probably wouldn't be, quite honestly, because you may want to do some of those even state and local contracts, subcontracting, maybe at one of the bases somewhere, depending what you do, to get your feet wet into the program, because you're only going to have 9 years and then you graduate. When the goal is, once you graduate, to be a viable small business where you can compete with other small businesses. Couple things with that, with the set asides. What's unique about the 8A program is we can do a sole source set aside up to $4.5 million. That has changed fairly recently. It used to be 4 million. It's now $4.5 million. So the contracting officer can, and I ain't gonna go through, it's a process, but they can award a contract directly to you for up to $4.5 million. It goes through our office. We get an offer letter, we accept it, and you can get a contract. Of course, in all cases, you're going to have to do a proposal and come to a fair and reasonable price with the contracting officer. So it's not just an automatic where you name your price and you get it. You still have to be really competitive, because there's always going to be a government estimate they're looking at. If it's above $4.5 million, the contracting officer can do an 8A competitive set aside, which means only 8As can compete for that contract. Okay, the third area of certification I'm going to talk about is hub zone, historically underutilized business zone. So, and you're going to have these websites too, and we sometimes jump on them when we do classes, but for 2 hours or so. But there's actually a hub zone map and you can put in your business address and determine if your business is located in a hub zone. So that's one of the requirements, that your business is located in a hub zone. You know, high unemployment, economically depressed areas. This is done through the census every 10 years. So as long as your business is located in a hub zone, that's one of the requirements. That's really sometimes the easier part to meet. Now, if you have a well-established business and you're not in a hub zone, do you pick up your whole business and move it somewhere just on the potential to get a contract? Probably not. You have to make a business decision. If you have your business in a home and it's in a hub zone, that's pretty easy. The second half, which is a little harder to meet, is that 35% of your employees must reside in a hub zone. So if you have 3 employees, maybe even including yourself, and they all live in a hub zone, you're at 100%. Or say 2 out of 3 are in a hub zone, so you're at 66%. Monday morning, somebody comes in and says they moved, and you know, they moved out of a hub zone, so now you're dropped down to 33%. I will tell you, and you can go read all over the website. Our website is really detailed. In the hub zone area is really good. They do not, you know, it's not automatically like you lose your certification. There is ways that you can show that you're trying to get back up to that 35%, you know, because do you hire another employee to get up to 50%, 2 out of 4? So there's decisions to make, but they have recognized that it is kind of a gray area. So the intent always has to be there that you're going to meet that 35% requirement without getting into too much detail right now. Last area is, and I should say too, on the hub zone, we do visits. We come out randomly to certified hub zone businesses and make sure they're located where they said they were. There's checklists and everything, and you're going to have to submit, you know, phone records, mailing. You have to show that you're operating out of that area that you're saying is in a hub zone, your office, that you're actually operating an office out of that area. So there's always checks and balances for all the programs. The last one is service disabled veteran-owned small business. This is really the only one that right now is kind of for the SBA is self-certification, where when you register in SAM, it's going to ask you a series of questions. So it's going to ask you, are you a small business? Are you a woman-owned business? Are you a woman-owned small business? Are you a veteran-owned business? Service disabled veteran-owned business. So by virtue of just self-certifying that you're service disabled veteran-owned small business, that's your certification right there. And it only applies to everybody but the VA. The VA has their own program, Veterans First program. So that's a whole different certification process. You will have the link if you're interested in that. And I would say, if you're a veteran, why wouldn't you be interested in doing work for the VA? You go out there and get your certification. It's never going to hurt you getting any of these certifications. So go out there and get your certifications. I mean, it does take some time. In our world, the 8A takes a little bit of time, but it's much more streamlined. It's not perfect, that's for sure, but it's much more streamlined than it was a few years ago when we used to have hard copy folders for everything. It's all done electronically online. And all those certifications there pretty much have to go through SBA headquarters. But what we do from our office is we assist you. So if you're interested in the certifications and you get hung up somewhere, get with somebody in our office and we'll help you along. If you have a lot of times when we get a complicated question on, especially the 8A certification, we have points of contact up there that we can ask questions because they look at applications every day. Down at the bottom there is something to keep in mind too. Set-asides are reserved for small businesses between 10 and 250,000, which is the simplified acquisition threshold. So that's the must, I guess. But like I said, contracting officers normally are going to small businesses first anyways. So there's also a government purchase card, simple simple purchases up to, I believe it's 20, it can be up to $25,000 depending on a few things. So there's another option for you. Go to the last slide here. This is kind of a starting point right here, is the certified.sba.gov. What we're trying to do, and I say we, the SBA, eventually this is going to be your one-stop shopping where any kind of certifications, it's almost there. You just go to certified.sba.gov and it's going to get you into the right area. There is actually a very good thing to go through. It's called AMP. If you go to the web page, you probably can't see that, but it's kind of in this area here. It'll say, am I eligible? And you go down, and that's the best tool, like to learn about all the programs. You go to there, am I eligible? It's going to ask you questions. And what's nice about it is when it asks you the question, you answer it to the right, it basically explains why you're asking the question. If I knew I had time, I might be able to hop on there, but I'll leave that up to Scott, because that's usually what I go through. It takes about 5 minutes, and I'll go through there and it'll tell you some of the things I talked about, like the personal net worth below 750, NAICS codes. If you didn't know what NAICS codes are, there's a link to it. There's a link to the hub zone map. So anything you want to know is linked off of there. So you'll have an email after the class, and it'll have this site also, because once you go through that, it's going to take you to our websites. Like right here, I put these in there, but even that am I eligible part, it will actually get you into these areas. And if you click on one of these, it'll take you into that particular area and let you go learn about all the programs. But I still would recommend that if you are interested in federal contracting, to click on this site right here, and you'll have a link to our calendar, and it'll show all upcoming events. We even put some of our resource partners like SBDC, SCORE, Women's Business Center. If we'll put their events on our calendar too, if they ask us to. And here's our points of contact right there. And we have our 3 BOSs. I don't know if Carl, did you get on? This
Yes.
is the last slide.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay.
This is the last slide. And Scott, how much time do I have left? I probably used my 15 or 20 minutes. So.
Oh, you've got plenty of time. Keep going.
Okay. Okay. Now I can scroll back through there. And if there's any questions, I'm sure there's a couple questions. And what I'll do is I'll click on some of these links and hopefully they'll come up. Are there any questions out there? Anything in the chat?
Mike, they've kind of gone to that beta deal with the internet. So even though I think you click, we have it as www.certified.sba.gov. Even if you click on it, it'll take you to the beta site.
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's our website. Can you see that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it'll show upcoming classes. We just did a contracting 101, a full version, like 2.5 hours last week. So we'll probably try to get one in sometime in November, maybe the middle of November. So you can scroll through here. Let me go back. Okay, let me close that out real quick. Let me go back here. Let me see if I have time to go on that. There we go. Okay, so can you see that? Certified.sba.gov?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so if you clicked on apply for the woman-owned program, it's going to take you into the beta certified, right? So that's where I was going to go anyway. So here's what I was talking about. Am I eligible? I'll go through this real quick. And the only one that's not on here right now that you wouldn't have, it has the woman-owned and the 8A program is a starting point. The last one they're really in and I said the service disabled veteran owned is self-certification right now in SAM. So the only one that's not directly on here where you apply on the certified site is the Hub Zone program. And I'm hoping they get that on there this year. So that'll be your starting point for everything. So I'm going to go through this, and this is what I was talking about. Is the qualifying individual of the firm applying for a US citizen? And it'll tell you right here, what it means. So we're going to say yes. So you have to be a US citizen. 51% owned and unconditional. And we use the term owned and controlled right here. So it'll tell you like you're the one making the decisions on the business. You're not just the owner, and somebody else is actually running the business. Worse yet, another business, and you're just a front. So, I mean, it does happen, it does happen. So, and that's for everybody's protection. Things like that are talked about or mentioned. So we're going to say yes here. Are you a for-profit? Because all these programs deal with for-profit companies. And, there's a few more details. I'm going to say yes. Do you affirm that neither this firm nor any of its owners have ever been debarred or suspended? So you're asking you, do you affirm? You're affirming that you haven't been debarred or suspended, and that's kind of bad terms. That means that that you maybe had contracts or had certifications before, and you were debarred from doing business with the federal government. So that means you did something wrong. Does firm have a place of business in the U.S. and primarily operated there? I'm going to say yes. Is firm considered small in accordance with its primary NAICS standards? So when you look at more details here, if I'm talking to you out there and you don't even know what a NAICS is, North American Industry Classification, you can click on some of these links here. This is why I say this is one of the best areas to go to, and you'll have it in the email. If you didn't know your NAICS, you can click on this website. Say you do educational or something like that, and it'll come up with a list of NAICS codes. So we're going to say yes, small. Are the qualifying individuals of a firm women who own at least 51%? And it can be, when you say 51% owned, it doesn't have to be one person. It can be a couple people. It could be, there's two women that own the business 50% each. That's 100%. You're good to go. Okay. So this is where the, I talked about the list. That's why they're asking you for this, your NAICS code right there, your primary NAICS code. So I'm going to put in construction 236220, and I know that's on the list, but it's going to explain all this to you. Like there's two, I mentioned this already. There's two types of set-asides. Woman-owned small business and economically disadvantaged. And this is going to take you back to our main website. And when you go there, there's going to be links to the two lists I mentioned. Actually, there's one list in it. It just says, or you can break it down. It says woman-owned small business or economically disadvantaged. It lists out all the NAICS codes that are eligible for a set-aside under that particular program. The contracting officer looks at that list. Yeah, some of them you just know they're there, but before they do a woman-owned small business set-aside, they're required to go look on that list and determine that it's a valid set-aside that NAICS appears on that list. So it's going to say find NAICS. Like if I would have put, I know that one is there. If I would have put something that it's not on either list, it would flag that at the end and say it doesn't appear you have a NAICS code that's eligible. But it could be you just punched in one code or you even made a mistake. And you can always come back here and I'll show you at the end if you think you're eligible and it said you're not. Here's more details. I mentioned some of these. I don't know if I even mentioned this on a woman. Your assets below 6 million, net worth less than 750,000, and your personal income 350,000 or less. So it tells you what's required. So say yes. Are you interested in participating in the 8A program? Same thing here. And this is wrong on the website, I believe.
It should be 6.
Yeah. Same with air. This is wrong too. You know, we identified that to get corrected last time I went through here. It should be 750,000. I mean, that changed a while back. Personal income is 350,000. So let's say yes there. And I talked about the socially economic groups, socially disadvantaged right there. And then here's the whole presumed, if you're not a member, case by case basis. That's not that easy, but I gave you a few examples how you can get into the program that way. So let's say yes there. Do you consider yourself socially disadvantaged? You know, yes. Have you ever been certified as an 8A participant? We had a class last week. A gentleman said, I was in the 8A program 15 or 20 years ago. And, you know, it had been so he was looking at some of the other programs. So obviously it's a one-time good deal. Even if it was 20, 30 years ago, you're done. One-time use. So it's 9 years and you're out. And that's why when we talk about being in business for 2 years, you know, that's important because you're in most cases, you're better off waiting that 2 years anyways, because at the end of the day, you're only getting 9 years regardless of now. So you may be better prepared to hit the ground running if you wait that 2 years. Oh, if I hit yes there, it'll say I'm not eligible at the end. I think I did that last time. Have any individuals claiming social and economic disadvantage previously used time eligibility? Now that could be some of your employees or everything, or somebody else, or one area they look at quite a bit is affiliation with other businesses. They do expect you to dedicate 100% of the time to the business because it's a business development program with some exceptions. So I'm going to say no there because that would be your, you know, you had already been. Is the address of certified? Is the address of the location located in a hub zone area? Excuse me. And I mentioned that before. If you clicked on this map right here, it'll bring up the hub zone map and you can punch your address in there. And it's important to note to make sure you do that. Even if you think you're in a hub zone area, always go back to this map and double check, because you and I could be across the street from each other and you're in a hub zone and I'm not. Do 35% of your employees reside in a hub zone? Again, it'll take you to the map because your employees, I live in Sumter, and if the business was in Columbia, if I lived in a hub zone, that's fine. Your employees can live in any hub zone as long as they're in a hub zone and the business is in a hub zone. And here's what you get at the end of that. You may be eligible. And when you go how to apply, it's going to take you back to our website. Now, if I would have checked, I did this last time, I accidentally checked something and it doesn't show the 8A, like, and you can actually go back and restart. Like if you said, yeah, I should have been eligible, you can restart and go back and answer the questions, because none of this is locked in. You know, always, if you think you're eligible or you're close on something, contact us, especially like the 8A program. The personal net worth is a lot of times what separates people, you know, like especially when it was 250,000, that used to be an issue. It's more opportunity, hopefully, because they raised that. We're always looking for good 8A firms, but I mean, these are certifications. You always are going to go back to that bread and butter. You're going to be a small business. You're a small business and you have to be competitive if you're interested in federal contracting, because you know, there's a limited amount of these set asides. You're going to see if you went out on SAM and look for opportunities, most of them that you'll see are going to be small business set asides, meaning any small business can compete for the contract. Are there any questions out there or anything you want to add real quick, Carl?
No, I mean, the main thing is just that just because you're applying for a certification doesn't mean that you shouldn't apply and get those small business set asides, or you shouldn't propose on those. That's the main thing. We have folks that are waiting on that certification and they're not doing anything in between. So most of you out there, 90% of y'all are small businesses. So if you have a requirement out there that's construction and it's set aside for small business, then you should bid on it. You shouldn't wait on your 8A certification or your woman-owned or your hub zone. That's pretty much it.
And I clicked on this one just to show you that it's going to take you back to our website right there. So if you always start off there, and you're going to have links to in the email, and it'll tell you all about the 8A program. You can look at all of them, and it's going to relink you to some of the information back to the NAICS codes. So our website actually is really good. If you follow this step by step, and when we were on the certify site too, there's checklists and things like that. Prepare. There's a checklist for the woman-owned. 8A, like I said, is complicated. If you clicked on that, it'll take you to a checklist. Well, it used to. Let's see if it's still there.
Yeah.
Well, it took us right to right there. There's some trainings and things like that. So there's a lot of information out there. Quick guide for your application. You know, it's a lot of information to just go over in like 15 to 20 minutes, but this will give you an idea. You know, if you think you're eligible for some of the programs, and if you don't do anything else, the first thing you want to do is register for SAM.
You have to. Because it's not gonna let you register for anything else unless you register in SAM. It asks for your DUNS number and the whole nine.
Yep. All right.
And the key to all these checklists is that, you know, if they're asking you for something, you know, no matter what it is, if it's your corporation, articles of incorporation and all that kind of stuff, you have to put something in there. So that's the key to it. You don't want to leave anything out, hoping that they'll review your application and then give you an error. What you want to do is make sure you cover every area that they're asking for. And if you have a question, you can give us a call.
Yep. So if you wanted to look further after the class, the two places I would go off the certify site, am I eligible, and prepare. And that'll tell you everything you want to know. And of course, our website, sba.gov. Thanks. Should I stop sharing now, Scott?
I'll take over. How's that?
All righty.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, hopefully all of you can see me right now. Before I begin, I did want to thank the folks at the Navy Small Business Office for their presentation this morning, as well as the SBA. Hopefully you got something out of that. It's a lot to digest in one sitting. That's why the SBDCs exist in part. They can walk you through that and make your life a little bit easier. In South Carolina, we do have a network. As far as the government contracting goes, we have a person in the upstate, Sherry Pittinger, and we have a new person who's very well qualified in Charleston, Scott Poole. Of course, we work online, so the geography is a little bit less important than it might have been at one stage. Our objective is really to make you more competitive in the government contracting arena. A lot of time is spent teaching people how to register, you know, with as you just saw. And then, of course, you register at state levels and county levels and city levels, and then you go through the whole certification process. Unfortunately, that's a necessary but not sufficient condition. You need to also learn how to navigate the federal marketplace or the state marketplace. And that's where our experience hopefully can give you some advantages. In government contracting, quite often they talk about being responsive and responsible. And the responsive part it's similar to what you just watched Michael Core talking about. It's how do you respond to a solicitation correctly? You have to get it in on time. You can't change the terms. They're trying to compare apples and apples when they do that. But the other part of it, though, that to me is probably even more important, has to do with being responsible. And the responsible in government contracting has to do with your capacity to actually do the work. And that doesn't mean that you can put up a 2-story building or that you can provide engineering services or whatever it is that you may do. That's of course important, but it also has to do with being financially solvent. It has to do with being able to demonstrate your integrity as a business. You just heard about past performance being important. There are a number of other things that are important if you want to be a government contractor. And so you really need to run a sound business. And this is one of the areas that we feel that the SBDCs can offer you, that depth and breadth. We can help you with the government contracting, but we can also help you with all the other areas that you are bound to need help with. I work with small business owners almost every day, and I can tell you, everybody, I get into details on their accounting or on their marketing or whatever it may be, and inevitably, like any business, they need some help. And we have the resources to help you with that. I think that my counterpart in North Carolina, Scott Barker, who will be speaking next, is going to tell you more about what they can offer. The SBDC and in North Carolina, the SBTDC, is part of a national organization. You'll find them in every state. And I think what you'll find is that those services are fairly uniform in terms of the areas that they offer and having some experienced people that can help you, and you should try to take advantage of that. It's also kind of important, I think, to recognize that when you talk federal contracting, you might think of it as national contracting. The federal government doesn't kind of look at state contracting the way we think of it sometimes. If you had a state contract, geography becomes more paramount. It becomes more important. You'll find that an out-of-state contractor can compete for work in South Carolina, for instance, but they may not have the competitive advantages that an in-state contractor has. They will actually give point differentials for that. And the same thing, even a city in South Carolina may say, oh, you're not from our city, you don't have the same advantages, even if you're in South Carolina. And so navigating all those intricacies are things that we can help you with. And you will find that, as Michelle Abrams said, the services are free and we just kind of chip away at it. I have clients I've worked with now for over 10 years. And eventually, you start out, struggling with almost all of it, but over time, it starts to sink in, and then we meet with you less and less, and you do more and more work, which is obviously the objective. One of the things that we have talked about when we've talked about procurement or government contracting is obviously what can we do to help the small businesses that we serve. And you'll notice in this presentation, they talked about the GCAP program, the Government Contract Assistance Program that both the SBDC and SBTDC offer. When you talk about the national or the federal contracting, There are a lot of opportunities that South Carolinians would like to have in North Carolina and vice versa, North Carolinians in South Carolina. And so one of the areas that we think that we can help with is on the networking front, because we deal with a lot of small businesses. Last year, between the two organizations, we worked with over 17,000 clients. That's a lot of networking. And within our own states, we have a fairly broad network. As Michelle said, I'm not sure about North Carolina, but in South Carolina, we have something like 50 consultants. And, you know, that again leads to a lot of networking. Within the government, you need to learn to navigate the waters on networking. And that's another area that we can help walk you through and give you some expertise. The government market, and here I'm speaking specifically about the federal market, is large. And I think sometimes, you know, when I actually show people the dollars being spent, I think sometimes they're pretty amazed. In North Carolina last year, I believe sales for work performed in North Carolina were about $9 billion. In South Carolina, they were just short of $8 billion. That's a lot of dollars being spent, and somebody's getting those contracts. And again, our objective is to help you find new markets. And that's what it is. It's simply the government market is simply another market. And the reality is that you're paying for it. That's what your taxpayer dollars are hard at work. A lot of times getting started, and this was mentioned before by Chris, is tricky, because you either have to start very small and find the micro purchases that Michael Core talked about that are out there, and you can find them, or you might look for opportunities as a subcontractor and learn the ropes. A lot of my clients started subcontractors, and after a while they say, Scott, how do I become a prime contractor? And in some areas that's easier to do, in some areas it's more difficult. But again, that's where you need some consulting advice, and I would encourage you to take advantage of that. It's as easy as asking for it. That's really all there is to it. So really what we're talking about doing is trying to figure out how we can work as far as North Carolina and South Carolina, work closer together for the benefit of you, the people attending this workshop, and other small businesses. I think we can do that in two ways. One is, again, helping you not only with the government contracting, but helping you to grow your business. And that's where everything that Michelle talked about, the accounting or the business planning and all the other things come into play and make you a stronger business. We can certainly help you with communications, with some of the networking. I would encourage you to also come back to us and say, well, I can think of ways you could help me. Ask us, because we're receptive to it. If we can help you, I think you'll find that we will. I don't want to belabor, drag on the presentation, so I'd like to take this. I noticed some questions popping up. Let me defer those on my part. Let me introduce Scott Barker, who's with the North Carolina Small Business Technology Development Center. He is going to explain in a little bit more depth what we do. And after Scott's presentation, the two of us and perhaps Michelle, if she's still there, will field any questions that you might have on that front. Okay, Scott, all yours.
All right, thank you very much, Scott. I'm gonna try to share my screen here. Let's see what we can do. Okay. All right, can everybody see that? The SBTDC slide up front?
We can.
You're good.
Okay. All right. Well, as Scott mentioned, my name is Scott Barker. I am coming to you from Greenville, North Carolina, home of the ECU Pirates. Arr. And yeah, as Scott mentioned, we are the government contracting assistance program in each of the Carolinas is in the process of trying to determine ways in which we can help small businesses in each state, each side of the state line, through collaborative efforts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide, about maybe the next 20 minutes or so, could be a little shorter, could be a little longer, a description about what the GCAP program here in North Carolina does. Which keep in mind that the GCAP program in South Carolina basically does the same thing. So, North Carolina Government Contracting Assistance Program, as Michelle mentioned earlier, everything we do is free. We are a specialty program under the Small Business and Technology Development Center here in North Carolina. And, Scott mentioned that we have a T in our name, unlike the SBDC in South Carolina. The T stands for technology. We do have a technology commercialization team under the SBTDC here in North Carolina. They specialize in helping small businesses that have a technology that they believe has the potential for commercialization. And they also are very up to speed and probably the best points of contact here in North Carolina for anybody who is interested in the SBIR or the STTR, a grant program that was discussed by Chris in the first presentation. So anyway, one-on-one counseling, everything we do is free. It's completely confidential. We won't share your information with anybody without seeking your permission first. So some of the things that we can do for you right off the bat. We get people coming to us on a daily basis, that believe they have, something that the government wishes to buy, whether it's a product or a service. Sometimes we will be the bearer of some unwanted feedback. We will tell you whether or not we believe you're ready, to pursue government contracting opportunities. It's a lot of work. There are a lot of documentations required for various types of certifications, all of your registrations and all of that stuff. We know how to do all that, and we can help you. But sometimes it might be better for you to wait, until you get your business going for a little bit. Mike commented it from the SBA about qualifying for the 8A program, and they basically have a rule of having been in business for 2 years, before they'll even take a look at you. As an overall rule, there are some exceptions to that, but we look at that the same way. If you have not been in business for 2 years, at least here in North Carolina, we'll give you some feedback, on how to, sometimes, maybe the 2-year point won't apply to you. Maybe you're, just retired military or something, and you've got a special skill, you start a company, and you already have, a government organization that's interested in purchasing that product or service from you. The 2-year point will obviously, bypass that, in certain instances. But as a ground rule, we kind of start with that, and we will let you know. So registrations, you heard about the SAM, System for Award Management. Through the SBA, as was mentioned, you have to register in SAM first. There are some other things you have to do even before having the ability to complete your SAM registration. You have to get a DUNS number. We can help you with that. It's very easy. If you request a number by, first thing in the morning, normally you'll have it, by the close of that business day. SAM registration, if you have all your information handy when you start working on it, we could get you through it. There was comments earlier, a couple of hours. We can get you through it a little quicker than that. We've developed a pretty good process using our remote screen sharing, abilities, and we could get you through a SAM registration by and large, in an hour, maybe a little bit less in some cases. Some other things that we can help you with: North Carolina. Certifications, Department of Transportation has a DBE, this is Franchise Business Enterprise certification, and our North Carolina Department of Administration also has a historically underutilized business hub certification. That's a state certification, not to be confused with the SBA hub zone. There are a lot of people that confuse those two. The VA in the SBA presentation, while you're filling out your SAM registration, it's going to ask you, if you're a veteran, are you a disabled veteran? And disabled veteran means basically you have a discharge paper, DD-214, and then you also have a letter of disability from the VA. So if you have those two, you're free to self-certify, in SAM, as a veteran-owned small business or a service-disabled veteran-owned small business. However, if you're going to be pursuing a SDVOSB set-aside contract with the VA, you have to get certified through the Center for Verification and Evaluation. That is being run by the VA right now. It will shift over to the SBA in about 13, 14 months. But all of the GCAP team here in North Carolina, we are all certified veteran assistance counselors. So every single one of us, know that process and can help you. We have a few veterans on the team, but even those who are not veterans, on our team, we're 7 people, know the system very well, and we're all out to help veterans. Okay, we'll touch upon this very much because it was already covered under the SBA, but these are all federal certifications. We can help you with those. We can help you with state certifications as well. I'll get into a little bit more, in a few slides about some reciprocity recognitions between South Carolina and North Carolina. If you have a certification in one state, a little bit more documentation, and you can get the other, the certification in the other state as well. And that's going to come in handy when both of the states start getting some of this American Recovery Act money set for infrastructure. I know at least here in North Carolina, and I believe in South Carolina, a lot of that federal money that's going to be coming to the state is going to be translated into state contracts, especially any kind of highway construction or road work, bridge work, anything like that. Here in North Carolina, the Department of Transportation manages most of that contracting. And there is an effort and there is a plan to set aside as many of those contracts as they can for companies that possess the North Carolina DBE certification. South Carolina has the same certification. If you have the certification in North Carolina, South Carolina is a reciprocal state of which, if you are a South Carolina company and you have a Department of Transportation DBE certification, and you want to get your North Carolina DBE certification, all you have to do is basically provide a copy of the documentation, that you had, that you used to get your SC DBE, provide it to North Carolina. I think there's 1 or 2 additional documents that you get, and you'll get your North Carolina DBE. So that'll allow companies in South Carolina, and it works the other way too. North Carolina companies, if you have your DBE and you want to pursue acquiring a South Carolina DBE, it's a similar process. So once the infrastructure money starts coming down and you start seeing these state contracts come out there, and lo and behold, 1 out of every 10 of them, is a set aside, for a SC DBE company or a NC DBE company, you can have that certification and be eligible despite not being a company in that state. Some other stuff that we can help you with, researching procurement histories. There was a little bit of talk in the first presentation, about SAM and the integration of the former federal procurement data system, into SAM. It's a wonderful research tool. You can find out anything about any kind of government contract that you can think of. Sometimes it's a little daunting and a little hard to understand. All of the GCAP counselors, here in North Carolina and likely in South Carolina as well, we know that system and we can help you with that. We can help you decipher, some of the federal government jargon and lingo, which may not be all that familiar to you. And, the SBA guy mentioned something about most people can get through their SAM registration. But there are a few that just can't, for whatever reason. And it doesn't have anything to do with your, capability of performing as a small business. A lot of times, just some of the federal government lingo in there, could be a little bit confusing. So we can help you decipher all that, get you headed in the right direction. So some other ways that we can help you. Networking training, Scott mentioned that, earlier. Yeah, it's kind of odd that, we've got two Scotts on here. And then Scott mentioned that you had just hired another GCAP person down there whose name is Scott as well. So Scott Bellows mentioned earlier, that networking and training are two key considerations, in helping your company move forward, with your small business contracting efforts. We can help you with both of those. There's a lot of different training out there. I mean, our team here in North Carolina, we do training on any particular subject, that is required. If we see a building level of interest in, capability preparation, we'll put a class together for that. Anything that falls into the federal or state contracting realm, we could put a training session together and put it out there for anybody who wants to take advantage of it. It's all for free. And I think the SBA gentleman commented also about when you're registering in SAM, and if you don't complete it all in one setting, it will save your progress so that when you come back in, it will pick back up where you left off. But there are these for-fee companies out there that have access to this information somehow. And you'll get an email almost without doubt, from a company purporting themselves to be SAM. They even steal the logo and all that. To me, it's fraud, but evidently they can do it, and they want to help you, complete your SAM registration. All they need is a credit card number. So if you see anybody, if you're approached by anybody wanting your credit card number, just keep in mind that everything that I'm talking about here is free. And you don't have to pay for anything. There are a couple of more complicated certifications, that you try to acquire from the federal government that do have a small cost affiliated, but everything that we're talking about today is all absolutely free. Another thing, a lot of clients want help with is just identifying, where do I find the opportunities? Where are they posted at? There are different locations out there. The federal opportunities are all, and solicitations are almost always on SAM. There are a couple exceptions to that. State, we have several different, depending upon what kind of contract you're pursuing, several different databases that provide that information here in North Carolina. And I'm sure the GCAP team in South Carolina knows where to find those as well. We can help you with that. Proposal preparation. This is a fairly common question that we get. A small business, got all of their registrations done. They may have acquired a certification or two, and they find a solicitation, that they actually, believe that they can do. I want to submit a proposal to this. And a common question is, what's the template, that I follow? And really, for a federal, for about 90–95% of the federal solicitations, out there, opportunities, there is no magic template. The directions for what your proposal needs to include will be spelled out, in sections, section L or section M, the federal solicitation. So we can help you navigate all that stuff. We will not write a proposal for you, but we can certainly put a second set of eyes on it, give you a little bit of guidance. Make sure before you submit it, we'll take a look at it and compare it to the actual solicitation, to make sure that you are being responsible in your reply. Putting a proposal together is a lot of work, especially your first one. You can spend a whole week pretty much doing nothing but putting this thing together, and you'd hate to be weeded out, because the maximum page count, for your proposal was 35, and you submitted a 36 page proposal. They won't give you a second look. You are deemed not responsible. You didn't respond to the guidance that was provided. So that's one of the first cuts. We can help you with that. Contract performance, if you're fortunate enough, and many of our clients, we went here in North Carolina, our clients that we help with government contracting assistance, went over $1 billion worth of contracts won within the first 6 months of the year. So it does happen. You just got to stick with it. We see it, day in and day out. People, have this idea that, it's going to happen quicker than it does, and if it doesn't happen as fast as they want it to happen, they kind of give up, and throw in the towel. It's really a exercise in persistence. You have to stick with it. Don't expect things to happen quickly. Do they happen quickly? On occasion, they do. By and large, you're going to have to put your time in, to get to a point where you're considered, for a contract, especially as a prime contractor. I'm going to talk a little bit about, pursuing some subcontracting opportunities in a second here, which is what we normally will try to guide new clients toward. And we're starting to get some success in some of our outreach strategies that we've been using with small businesses. So some of the other things, once you win a contract, these are some of the other aspects and considerations, that our team, as well as the GCAP team in South Carolina, can help you with. So audit, I think there was a mention in the very first presentation from Chris about the Defense Contracting Auditing Agency. If you do win a contract, you can count on an audit, of some sort. And a lot of people get all nervous about all that stuff. It's fairly straightforward, and as long as you're, abiding by all the guidance and rules and regulations, yeah, you're going to be just fine. But we can help you with that as well. Subcontract. By and large, the vast majority of the clients that contact us are really in a better situation to pursue subcontracting opportunities than they are as a prime. We can help you identify, depending upon what service or product you sell, or you believe the federal government, is looking to purchase from you. We can identify right off the bat, the prime contractors who are already winning government contracts as primes, for your NAICS codes. We can identify the contracting office points of contact for each of those prime contractors. And what we've been doing, and it is starting to generate a little bit of success, is helping clients, take that list. It's going to be 50 or more, narrow it down to about 10 or a dozen or so that they believe might have an interest in them in some form or fashion. Maybe the fact that you're located in Columbia, South Carolina, may be an attraction to a prime contractor who's located out in, Colorado or something, who was winning contracts, with your NAICS codes. Reach out to them, let them know who you are, and ask to be placed on their vendor list for future subcontracting opportunities. And we're starting to see some success with this, which is starting to lead to more and more of our clients starting to win some subcontracts. And the way you make yourself competitive as a prime is to build up your past performance. Of course, subcontracting, you're not going to make as much money, as you are as a prime contractor. But in order to compete with those who have already cracked the code, you come in brand new with no federal government or state government contracting past performance, you're not going to look very competitive. So a way to build up the competitiveness is to build up the past performance, in your capability statement. And the easiest way to get government contracting past performance is through the subcontracting avenues. So we've learned a little bit, and we'll be willing to share that with you and help you if you're interested. Emergency and disaster recovery. Another thing that we do. Yeah, it's not a question of when, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when, the next disaster hits the Carolinas. If you're not already registered, in a couple of different databases, FEMA and a few on the state level, when the disaster hits, you're already behind the power curve. So we could help you get all of that stuff in place before disaster hits. There are a couple of PSC codes, in addition to NAICS codes, in your SAM assertions that you should probably list in there that aren't very well known to folks, but it'll get you into the FEMA database. And when they do a search, for your NAICS code, in one of the Carolinas, for this PSC code, R429, you want them to find you. And we can help you make sure that you're in as many places as you could be to increase your chances. Some other things that we do as a GCAP team. I'm not going to go into any of these with any detail, but cybersecurity compliance, you've heard that mentioned, I think, with both presentations. The cybersecurity model maturity certifications coming down the road. The last that I've heard is the first DoD contract that will have, or first DoD solicitation that will have that requirement in there is going to come out in 2024. And it's going to be not too many, maybe a dozen or so that year. And then the next year, maybe 2 dozen, and then full-fledged 2026. And it's not too early to start putting yourself into a better cybersecurity posture. And that applies to any small business, whether you're going to pursue government contracting or not, something that we can help you with. Local certifications are going to be a little bit different for South Carolina and North Carolina, but certainly each of the GCAP programs can help you with that. So here's a map of R7 in North Carolina. And I guess South Carolina's got 3 or 4. And yeah, we are, if you're in North Carolina, we'll help you with no problem. Jackie, who's in the Charlotte area, probably 40% of the Charlotte metro area is in South Carolina. So she gets involved with helping some South Carolina companies. Yeah, we have to kind of be careful because we're funded with North Carolina money, partly, and then the South Carolina team's funded with South Carolina money. But we'll do what we can to help anybody out there. Just reach out to any of us. Like I said, this slide's going to be available to anybody who wants it afterwards. Here is our website for the North Carolina GCAP program. Yeah, we have a lot of different information in there. We have some self-paced training videos, list of events that are coming up, all kinds of things like that. And as I mentioned initially, we are a specialty program, under the SBTDC, here in North Carolina, as well as the GCAP program in South Carolina is under the SBDC down there. Once you become a client, with the GCAP program, with the SBTDC or the SBDC, as Michelle mentioned, there is the plethora of other counseling services available, all of them, completely free of charge and completely confidential. And as Scott mentioned, yeah, all you got to do is ask. We're here to help you. My team, particularly with government contracting, but we've got business counselors, we got resiliency counselors, we've got technology counselors. Here in North Carolina, we have, if you're interested in exporting, we've got counselors to help you with that. So reach out to us. I mentioned earlier reciprocity regarding certifications, and I talked about the Department of Transportation DBE certification. I won't go into that again, but there's another certification that we have here in North Carolina, and I mentioned briefly, the Department of Administration manages a hub certification, and they will recognize, now they have a reciprocity agreement with 4 other states, South Carolina being one of them. And if you have and it could even be a federal certification, like a women-owned small business certification or an 8A certification, there is a way to get recognized with that federal certification or a South Carolina equivalent of the hub certification and get your North Carolina hub certification with just a little bit extra documentation. And as I mentioned, the majority of the infrastructure money, at least here in North Carolina, that we are expecting to issue out in terms of contracts is going to be managed by the Department of Transportation and the DBE certification. However, there's going to be some that are going to be managed by the Department of Administration, here in North Carolina. And there will be some set-asides for companies who possess the North Carolina hub certification. We can help you with that. One last thing, I think I got maybe one more slide after this. Scott has mentioned and I have mentioned, the fact that contracting in the Carolinas, is something that we are looking at trying to promote and trying to develop, into a more capable combined approach. We have an opportunities reverse trade show, set up for Asheville on the 14th of March, where vendors who are already government contract winners, will come, set up booths, a great place, to network, a great place to seek out some subcontracting opportunities. potentially even a mentor-protege relationship, of some sort, or teaming arrangements, joint ventures. There's all kinds of ways, that you can approach government contracting and opportunities. More information will be put out in South Carolina. We'll get all the registration information as well as everybody in North Carolina. Just want to mark your calendar, 14 March. It's not that far away. And I went into some of this already. North Carolina SBTDC services. Like I said, once you become a client, GCAP client, or any kind of SBTDC client, you are eligible for all of the other services that we offer as well. And at least in North Carolina, this is how you will submit a request for counseling. It's all electronic. Each center, that we have 12 different centers here in North Carolina. I think South Carolina might have a few more. Has their own counseling requests, so you'll get assigned to that center, but you can work with anybody in this state. And then really that's about all we have. As I mentioned, there is all of these slides are going to be made available to everybody. So if you have any ideas, about how we can be better, serving the clients, let us know. And that's it for me. So Scott, I don't know if you have any questions, for you or I, in the chat box, but be glad to entertain anything that anybody has a question about.
Now, I just might comment that if we started your presentation from the beginning and put SBDC in front of it, we would have run through the same presentation. So
Yeah.
The services that were described essentially are offered in both states. If anyone has any questions, we're more than happy to answer them. And if not, it is hump day, as they say, and I suspect some people are ready to call it a day. Sarah, do you see any questions that anyone has?
I think you're good.
In that case, I wish everybody a very pleasant evening and thank you for attending the workshop. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.